Welcome back to the Unanimous Decision Podcast. I am your host, SPalm. Follow me on Twitter at SPalm66. Follow the show on Twitter at UDPod. Follow the entire MTR Network on Twitter at the MTR Network. You found us. Don't lose us. Subscribe in the iTunes Store and leave that 5-star review while you're in there. 4 stars for haters. And we'll read whatever you say on the air. Even if it's a mean thing about a team I love, I will read it on the air. If it's a mean thing about the show, I'll read it on the air. If you have more you want to say, you can email us at udpodcast@gmail.com. Tell the plug-in I feel like doing today. I have a guest today, and I always run the risk when I have guests that people respond to that they're going to want to take over the podcast. But normally when those people do that, I can just either not answer their texts or not answer their emails. This is a guest who people like more than me and lives in my home. We're taking a brief respite of moving into our new home. I think, do we settle on SPalm? What do we settle on for your name here? We've got Susan, my wife, on the line right now. Hi, Susan.
Hi.
Well, so do we settle on SPalm or we're going with Snoozens? What's the nickname du jour for the podcast?
I don't know. I think it's still up for debate. We need to talk about it.
Let's save that for post podcast. I don't feel like losing an argument on my own airwaves for free. Okay, so you got to start at the beginning. You start at the end, I guess. The Cavs got swept from the finals. LeBronukah has finally ended. The Golden State Warriors went 4-0 and beat the Cavs. And before we do anything else, we've got to praise the Warriors. They put together a team the likes of which I've never seen in my sporting life. 3 out of the last 4 championships. And Susan, as someone who's late to the sports game and kind of being a forced more than casual observer because you get to watch me yell at the television, how does it feel for you to watch the Warriors win again?
Well, it's hard to watch. I didn't want to watch it. It hurts. As being an Atlanta fan of sports, we've had enough loss in the last few years. And
but there's a part of you that can step back and appreciate what Golden State's done because you watch them play and it's beautiful basketball.
It is, but they're stacked. I mean, like we were talking about yesterday, you could argue that the Cavs could have tried to do the same thing for themselves, but it's, of course they're going to win. I mean, LeBron is incredible, but they're stacked. It was hard to watch.
They also, and we'll talk about how the construction of the team kind of happened, but kind of just watching the Warriors in a vacuum, watching in Game 3, I think it was, where 2 of their big 3 misfired, and Kevin Durant just throws up a 40-point game. It's one of those situations where, yes, they are stacked, and yes, it's kind of lopsided, but they got pushed to 7 by Houston, and they've looked vulnerable in this playoffs. But I think that I can step back. I'm still in a place where I can step back and say it is a little unfair. It's a little stacked, but man, they are something to watch. I've never seen anything quite like this in team sports.
And I agree, but the fact that they had to go to 7 games against Houston, and they're that stacked. I don't know. I'm not a fan.
Well, let's stop looking at the team. Let's look at individuals. Kevin Durant picked up his 2nd straight Finals MVP. Very impressive for him. He had an amazing series, triple-double to kind of cap it. So you and I are both big LeBron James fans. We're big fans of greatness. Does Kevin Durant going to that stacked team kind of color the way you view him?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that I don't know. He can't do it on his own.
Okay, but we say that, but also, you and I take a step back and we say, if we were looking for a job, we want to work at the best workplace possible, which is what Kevin Durant did with his free agency.
And you're right. I agree. You're right. And, I mean, that's...
But it still feels, because it's sports, it feels for some reason a little distasteful, right?
No, you're right.
No, I'm agreeing with you. I think, on some, visceral level, part of me is he made the right decision for himself, but I still don't love it,
No, totally. We don't love it because the team that we were rooting for lost.
It's not the Hawks. If it was the Hawks, I'd be like, let's go!
Of course we did this. It makes the most sense.
Well, that's one of the funny things that kind of happened with this Warriors team. Everyone points to them losing to the Cavs in the finals in that year and then picking up Kevin Durant. But what people got to realize that, looking back, yeah, of course, it's a lopsided thing. But when they lost to the Cavs that year, they won 73 games. They won the most regular season games ever. And their contract was up with their small forward, and Kevin Durant was a free agent. And it was well, yes, you could say, let's bring back the small forward who's not that good. But as we tell all teams of free agency, go get the best player you can for your needs. It just happened to be the best player they could for their needs was a Bugatti. Like, it's like, hey, I need a car. Well, buy a Civic. Why would I buy a Civic? I can afford a Bugatti. Like, I guess, yeah, you buy the Bugatti.
I feel like you just tricked me into agreeing with you by making it a competitive thing. Like, wouldn't you want to work for the...
Welcome to episode 96 of the Unanimous Decision Podcast.
Of course I would want to work for the best team. Of course.
But and the thing is, when you've got that much money and that much personality and that much talent on the team, it's interesting because people say that, they put together these superstars. Steph Curry has put up 11 points in Game 3.
Yeah.
If LeBron James put up 11 points in a playoff game at this point in his career, we'd roast him. Kevin Durant didn't win a ring for 10 years in the league. No one seemed to care. The question now becomes, what is a star in this league? Because we're now looking at 2 straight James Harden flameouts where he's going to be either the winner or runner-up for the MVP for the regular season, but no one seems to be excoriating him the same way they would LeBron James. Is it fair to say that there is a singular star in this league and it's LeBron James? And secondly, how do you feel if you're Kevin Durant? You collect 2 Finals MVPs. You carry this team to a win in these last 2 games, to be honest, but you'll never be as loved as Steph Curry by those people.
That's a fantastic point. I mean, you know that I feel like LeBron James is the biggest star in this league, and the things that you just said about the Golden State Warriors, I mean, proves it even more so. It doesn't matter that they won. He is still the king.
Right.
It blows my mind that anyone could have an argument against that. He's held to a higher standard than everyone else, which is bullshit.
But it kind of speaks to the stature he's built. It speaks to the resume, because we looked at this playoffs, and you and I, like the Toronto series where he kept those game winners off the glass, like the runners, the things he did, the Boston Game 7, hitting that layup with a man literally draped on his back, a grown human being, where he backpacked him to a layup. Shout out to the challenge. And I just think it speaks to the pantheon that he's placed himself in. The fact that there was a legitimate conversation before Game 4 of, well, how many votes do you think LeBron's going to collect for MVP? Because if the word valuable is to be taken at face value, there is no one of greater value on a basketball team than LeBron James.
Yeah, I mean, I think people need to take a step back and level set.
Yeah.
Look at the facts, and he is being held to a higher standard consistently. People love to talk shit, but it's extremely clear that he's the king. I'm
really glad you said it, because now people won't yell at me about it. Your guess was wrong. Whatever, that's fine. I agree with that still. Let's talk about kind of the drama that we know is going to come in Warrior Land, because in an uncapped game where teams are playing luxury tax, the 2 biggest payrolls made the finals. The Warriors by far the largest. They got big deals coming up. Kevin Durant has indicated that he will take a pay cut to stay. Klay Thompson's deal ends at the end of next season. I jokingly said that this was his last game in the Golden State uniform, but the team has said that they don't want to trade him, or they don't want to lose him for nothing, but he said that he's not resigning. If Klay Thompson goes to the open market in 2 years and decides to test his value, the max a team can offer him is $86 million more than an extension would be staying in Golden State. Susan, you're an amazing delegator and leader. I've watched you work. I have a question. You've been a part of many teams. Is there any team you've loved, our team accepting, don't do that, but is there any other team you've loved that you would stay on for and take an $86 million haircut?
Absolutely not. Never.
Well, and that's the crazy thing, because Klay is a smart guy. He's a very laid-back guy, but his dad is an NBA veteran too. His dad knows how this league works, and his dad was in the media the week of Game 3 and 4 saying Klay will not be resigning in Golden State. So now if you're Golden State, do you trade him in the offseason to say, let's get some value, or do you try to ride this thing out? Because I'll be honest with you, you watch other players like a Travis Ariza who's saying, I'll take a pay cut to go to Golden State. At a certain point, you can't pay for all the things you've got. So the team has to change. But is this $86 million in this looming Kevin Durant deal going to be the beginning? Because I think that right now the Golden State looks at their team and says, Steph and Kevin, everyone else we can replace.
Yeah.
And that's a great place to be. Let's be fair. That's an amazing place to be as a franchise.
I mean, they have all the power.
all the power in the world. And that's because they won, like we said, 3 out of the last 4. People have posited that this kind of lack of parity is bad for the NBA. I would retort that the Lakers and Celtics have won 75% of the titles. This has always been a star-driven league built on a few teams. LeBron James has been to as many finals as the Warriors franchise. That's a terrifying number, but it's also 100% true. It's been proven that this league, loves a star, it loves a star team, it loves a star storyline. So let's dead that bad for the NBA narrative right now. What's good for the NBA? I saw more competitive playoff games this year than I have in the last 3. What that means to me is that the Warriors have set a high watermark, but the rest of the teams aren't giving up. You've got a New Orleans team that rolled a higher seed in Portland this year and then gave the Warriors a fight. You've got the Houston team pushing them to 7 without Chris Paul. A Houston team, by the way, that could have LeBron James in the offseason. You're watching what's happened in Boston, what they did without their 2 big stars, the beginnings of something in Philadelphia, which we will be talking about later, don't you worry. And I say to you, is this Warriors thing not bad for the league, but it might be the best thing this league could ever ask for?
Well, it keeps they're setting the bar. I mean, why wouldn't you do all these things to try to make your team as good as them? I understand that it's not that easy, but
right.
Why not keep pushing it?
Exactly. And now, because everything's gotten so interesting and because that one bullseye is on the Warriors, I can tell you 8 or 9 teams that LeBron has been rumored to speak to in this offseason during free agency, and one of them is the Warriors.
Oh, my God.
The fact that he's having a conversation. But the fact that I can have it make a case for him ending up as a Laker or a Rocket or a Sixer or a Celtic or a Cav or a member of the Heat, he can go at least 6 places top of my head easily. Making this, again, the LeBron sweepstakes is the most interesting thing this summer.
I mean, doesn't that make next season sound incredibly, like you just can't wait? I mean, super exciting.
Look, for everyone who says they're tired of this league and they're tired of the lack of parity, I've watched the numbers go up every year. More people are watching the NBA than ever before. They're increasing on an annual basis on a steady climb. This is a league that's figured out their audience. They figured out their fan base. And part of figuring out that audience and that fan base was saying, hey, players, go be yourselves. In the lead up to during the finals, LeBron James said, and I believe he was speaking for both teams at the time, there's no way either the Cavs or the Warriors would be accepting a White House invitation. Steph Curry then came out and basically echoed LeBron that we do what we did last year, which was a day of service in D.C. And because Twitler can't not respond to any slight by a brown person, he said that neither team would be invited upon winning. Susan, I do hate doing this. We're now in a place where the president of the United States is uninviting people from a party that no one wanted to go to. Again. And we're not going to talk about the level of embarrassment we have for what's happening in the G7 and what's happening in the White House. But I will say this. Can you win a PR battle against LeBron James and Stephen Curry?
No. Our president is a trash person and a toddler. I mean, he's don't know if I should be saying that.
You're fine.
For the people who are going to hear it.
I said way worse things. Don't worry about that.
But no, he's not going to win. Especially
from not even from the framing the argument thing, just from a strict, you're in a PR battle between 2 of the largest stars in the world. What are you doing?
It's idiotic. And also just a waste of time. Maybe there are more important things to be doing.
Well, you wouldn't know it speaking to the people at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue because, as we covered on Tuesday, Donald Trump decided in lieu of having the Philadelphia Eagles come to the White House where one was going to come in a mascot. By the way, I'm normally not agree with Trump on anything. If you offer to send me a player and a mascot and some I'm like, yo, don't come. Fine, don't come. Like, on that level, I get it. Like, I get it. That's offensive. That was mean. And, yeah, I get it on a very human level. But like he said, they was going to replace it with an event for Eagles fans, where 1,000 Eagles fans would come. They would sing songs about the United States. They would sing the national anthem, except forgetting the fact that bloviating rectal wart on American presidency doesn't know the words of the songs he asked them to sing. They couldn't even get Eagles fans. And you and I know, like, we lived in Philly. Like, Eagles fans, you can get them to do a whole lot of stuff. But
They're
apparently
terrifying.
it was staffers from the White House who were sitting in the garden being interviewed because, well, as we've always said, no one turns on a television camera. They get in front of that camera. They'd say, "Hey, by the way, who was the Eagles quarterback this year?" And 6 out of 6, no one knew the answer. They were hiding White House badges. And I'm not going to get into was this a scam because it was, or was it pulling that out because it was. Like, this is the toddler part, because it's the part that, like, we can create this scene that no one's going to investigate or ask any second questions about. It's
Well, just put less effort into things. Like, this doesn't matter. Quit it. Just stop it. It's absurd. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing that we as Americans have to be having this conversation.
it's embarrassing, but hashtag content. Because there is no winning for this NFL thing, because the NFL said, you know what, Donald Trump's mad about the kneeling. He told Jerry Jones in a conversation that was revealed in a deposition that, quote unquote, you guys can't win this. This one lifts me. He knew what he was doing. So the NFL owners said, or not even the owners, the ownership said that, hey, we're going to institute this ridiculous draconian anthem policy for next season. But what you've got to realize is that there's no way to satisfy this idiot.
No.
There's
or
no
his
way.
Followers.
Exactly.
It's never going to be enough.
And so it went from saying, oh, something kneeling needs to happen, to now saying, well, players that are kneeling, come to me, people you want pardoned. And he's turned it into like celebrity who wants to have a presidential pardon. And I'm laughing because it's so fucking absurd. But the NFL seems to think that they can reason with this man who at every turn has proven to be unreasonable. The parable about the snake or the scorpion and the toad. This is the scorpion and the toad, and they keep getting stung. And I'm like, stop picking up the scorpion. It's not going to work. They're both going to drown. And lo and behold, the NFL keeps drowning, keeps wondering what went wrong.
No, I mean, he's on per usual, he's on a psychopathic power trip. It's disgusting to see. And I understand to an extent, like the feeling like maybe we should listen to what he has to say. But no, it's not. He's not in it to benefit anyone but himself. And it's
not even himself. And at this point, it's gotten to the point where I'm willing to entertain the idea that this is strictly vengeance. Because 2 years ago, he wanted to buy the Bills, and the NFL was like, absolutely fucking not. Oh. And so the NFL owners, because you have to be voted in as an owner, and the owners are like, you have the money, get off our lawn.
Long con vengeance.
20 years prior, he started the USFL just to fight the NFL and ran into bankruptcy because they wouldn't let him buy a team. This has gone beyond. This is a combination of a personal vendetta mixed with it's great optics for his base, and it's equal to you're now in a match where you're trying to appease someone who's literally unappeasable. There is no center core of belief that you're trying to reach. He has no center core. All it is black and white wins and losses. And every time you hand him an inch, he wants to take you the mile, and the NFL goes the mile. And it's ridiculous, and it's absurd, and it's now ending up with this collusion case where Colin Kaepernick's lawyer is subpoenaing the president of the United States of America and the vice president of the United States of America because Michael Pence decided to pull a pre-G7 stance and go to a Colts game, wait for the players to kneel, and then walk out to signal something. That he hates these rich black men as much as you do watching at home. And the gamble has always been, we're gambling that our viewers hate these people more than they love the sport. And as a Yahoo report announced this week, we've now crossed a tipping point in polling where over 50% of Americans do not consider kneeling players unpatriotic.
That's shocking to me.
I didn't think the liberals were going to win football in the Civil War, but here we are. And not only that, the longer you let the players make their case, the more people are like, wait, you are being ridiculous. Because this week, Malcolm Jenkins, who has done innumerable things in the name of the cause, decided to have his normal media availability handled just a little bit differently. He did not come out and give a speech. He did not come out and answer questions. He came out and stood in his locker with placards. With placards, he said signed and statistics and answers to the questions. And the best one I saw, the one that kept coming up, you are not listening. Did you see this?
Yes, I did. I did. I mean, what an incredibly simple way to get your point across. And I'm a stats nerd, so just it's so plain and simple. It's so easy to see, and just lay it out. It's not going to be enough. It'll never be enough. But what a way to communicate that information.
It's really, for me, it was one of those things where, and it was so funny to watch the reporters asking questions. What are we listening to? And I'm just like, are you what, ma'am? The placards.
It's still not what we've been trying to get you to listen to for over a year. That's what.
It's ridiculous, and it's something that you can't really explain outside of willful ignorance, and that's what it's really come down to. It's something that I've been championing for a while, is what it is. Let's talk about some actual NFL stuff that I didn't put on the list. I'm gonna throw you off with.
Oh God.
NFL reports this week have multiple sources saying that Belichick wanted to trade Rob Gronkowski this week. The offers were on the table for both the Titans and the Niners. He and the owner, Robert Kraft, had a closed-door meeting to discuss. Tom Brady threatened to retire if the deal went through and Kraft nixed it. People were saying it's not true, but this goes on to a continued level of discontent in the New England front office. We heard it off season from players who say, they just don't want to be there. Ex-Patriots who say, I sacrificed my life and my personality to get a ring. You've heard it from now Julian Edelman, who's been dealing with the doctor who's not a doctor, who said he cured cancer, but is not actually a doctor. Alex Guerrero, who works with Tom Brady in a select inner circle of Patriots players who Belichick hates, but they can't seem to get off the property. Now, one of his disciples of the TB12 method, I swear to God, that's what they call it, Julian Edelman, was popped for 4 games for performance enhancers. And as an NFL fan and as a football fan, I think we all kind of shrug at performance enhancers because we watch the games. We're like, well, yeah, probably. I mean, that's well, he's taking to recover. Of course he is. Look at the game they're playing. But the wrinkle comes in when the guy who gets popped is also tied to this guru who can cure cancer, who's not a doctor, who Tom Brady has entered into the lives of the Patriots. Am I being messy because I hate the Patriots, or am I being messy because this is, as maybe not individually it's a story, but coming together with everything that's there, you've got to ask questions about what the hell's going on at one Patriot place.
I mean, they're so good. Why does there need to be all this drama?
I love the drama. Football. No, I want the drama. I need the drama. I need to know that they're human. This is watching? It's like watching a very famous person who's been brought to doing a reality show. It's like, oh my God, that person has flaws. This is like, oh my God, Tom Brady. Even let's say none of this is true. Let's say they didn't offer to trade the greatest tight end in the history of the NFL. Let's say Tom Brady did not threaten to retire, and that Bill Belichick is not that upset with the fact that they traded a backup quarterback he didn't want traded, the fact that Tom Brady he's bringing in is not doctor to the facility, and that maybe he did want to trade Rob Gronkowski. So let's pretend all those things aren't true.
All right.
What damage does it do for me to believe it? It's like Santa Claus the Tooth Fairy. It's a victimless rumor. Let me believe this, right? I need to think that they're human so that I think that they can be beaten.
Hello?
I'm here.
Okay, sorry. I feel like we're talking about tabloid football trash.
That's where I am with the Patriots. I'm not entirely convinced they can be killed in a football field. I'm only hoping that the TMZs of the world. I'm hoping Tristan Thompson happens in New England. That's what I'm really hoping. I'm hoping that
you just want to see them torn down in any way possible.
Oh my! The locust descended on Foxborough. Oh well, I'll take anything. Act of God, lightning strikes, whatever. I am here for it. Just it needs to end. We've been doing this since 2000. It's 2018. The Patriots way can vote, and it voted Republican. Okay, so NFL sticking there for a second. Terrell Owens, who was pre-your NFL fandom. So let me explain. Are you even tacitly aware of Terrell Owens?
Maybe.
Okay. Think of the most obnoxious human being possible.
Okay.
Multiply that person by 2, but make him exceptionally good at his job. To the point where, his statistically is second only to Jerry Rice in the history of the NFL. Now,
those people are the worst.
They are the worst, and people hate them. And because the media votes on the Hall of Fame ballot, he was kept out for 2 years. He finally got voted in this year and has now announced that he will not be attending the Canton celebration. People are saying he should go, blah, blah, blah. My view is if he doesn't want to be there, don't make him be there. And 2, the speech he would give, no one really wants to hear because it'd just be the meanest, angriest thing ever. Because They kept him out strictly because they didn't like him. That's the thing that makes me okay with him not going.
That's childish.
Wait, on everyone's part? That's the thing, is you say it's childish, but it applies to the writers, it applies to Terrell Owens. I get it on Terrell Owens' side, because if it's supposed to be on merit, there's no reason it should have taken him 3 years to get voted.
I mean, it's childish from their part to keep him out just because they don't like him. Yeah. I would react the same way.
Well, you're also very, 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 very petty.
Hey, the people don't need to know that.
That's why I'm married. Okay, so let's talk about something that's less fun about the NFL, because Ryan Shazier, who was temporarily paralyzed in the field last year playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers, was one of the applause lines for the NFL draft this spring as he came out to announce a pick. I felt uneasy being an ex-football player, because basically the NFL was saying, you might get paralyzed, but we will applaud if you're not. And so these players, if I'm an NFL player and I'm coming into the league, shaking Ryan Shazier's hand, while a cool, uplifting, humanitarian story-wise, very interesting thing to happen, it does cast a bit of a pall on my interest in the NFL. Now Ryan Shazier is up and walking. He's doing continued physical therapy. He says out of every 30 days, maybe 2 are bad, but he's expressing an intense desire to return to the gridiron. I recognize that on a certain level, we're all, even watching the sport, kind of cheering for a safe cigarette, like knowing that there's no safe way to do this thing that's football. But watching a man get almost paralyzed and having the NFL hold him up as an example as he fights and claws back, it makes me feel uneasy, but it also kind of is what the NFL needed. They needed someone who not only is kind of aware, but very much mortally aware of the risks demanding they be led back on the field. Is that a victim of brainwashing, or do you think conditioning, or just kind of dedication to this game? Because I'm sorry, if I get paralyzed in the field, it's a wrap.
I mean, it feels like brainwashing to me. I mean, but I get it. I mean, there's so much money involved.
Well, I think for me, it's not even the money, because I struggled with this when I finished playing in college. For a long time, your identity is, I'm an athlete, I play football, and Ryan Shazier said in the interview that he's, for so long, thought of himself as a football player. This is all he knows. This is all he loves in this world. How could you ask him to walk away from it, or roll away from it, or whatever the sort of equipment would be? But that's it. And when that's the risk and that's the thing on the line, I get it from an intellectual and emotional standpoint. It's hard to redefine yourself. But I think that in the last 10 years, I found a way out. I don't know.
It just hurts me to think about. I mean, like you said, like there's no safer cigarette. I guess I get his thought process, but like, I mean, he couldn't walk. The idea of going back to that is terrifying to me.
And the question now becomes, is this good or bad for the league? Because on the one hand, like I said, you've got a player who is acutely aware of the dangers, who's demanding to be let back on the gridiron. But as the NFL, you can't let him back on the field, because if someone dies on your field, and I know the argument is he's at no more risk of paralysis than he was before. That's not a good pitch. Sorry.
No, and as a fan, how do you watch him play without feeling?
Ryan, you and I talk a lot about watching these games, and how you've noticed my absorption of football has gone back in the last couple of years. I don't think I could ever watch him step foot. I think I'd turn off if he was in a game I was watching, I would do something else, anything else. I cannot watch him play football.
Yeah, I'm good.
Speaking of stories the NFL probably doesn't want maximized, we have a story out of the Washington Post where a former member of the NFL's Domestic Violence Committee has resigned and come forward with their problems. Deborah Epstein is a professor of law and co-director of the Georgetown University Law Center's Domestic Violence Clinic. I'm going to go ahead and link this in the show notes because everyone needs to read it. But in short, it explains how, as many critics said in the beginning, this committee exists in name only. The event that precipitated the creation of the committee, of course, was the video of Ray Rice striking his then fiance in a Atlantic City casino elevator. What the idea was, and the way it was announced, was that there was going to be a players association organizing an official effort to study and rectify the NFL's domestic violence epidemic. I want to make something very clear here before we keep going on. The domestic violence epidemic in this country, in this world, is not limited to the NFL. It's not limited to sports, not limited to athletes. And I always fear that when we discuss these things, we make it sound like these are outliers, not just sample sizes of men in general. But I just want to say that just as we get into it, because the idea sounded good. They brought on very talented, very learned people to be involved with this. Lisa Goodman from Boston College, who's a research psychologist with experience working with survivors of domestic violence. The NFLPA apparently was behind this. They did a study 2 years ago, June 2016. Since then, the committee's met 3 times. In the last meeting, the NFLPA had not implemented any of the reforms proposed. These are people who they brought in who were told that you could affect change here, you could make something better here, and every step they tried to make to make things better, they didn't do it.
So essentially, they formed a committee to appease the people, and they did nothing.
Have you seen the pink in October? Crazy thing. Yeah, and that's kind of why, especially in the face of this revelation, the idea that singular presidential pardons would be a feasible alternative to systemic correction is laughable. These are women who professional learned people who came in and said, let's fix this problem. The NFL is like, oh, you thought we were serious? Wow, okay. But yeah, you guys are going to meet like 4 times, give us a study, and we'll work from there. We got it from here. And it's one of those stories that the NFL sweeps under the rugs. It's a story that comes out during the finals. I'm not sure how much press it's actually getting. But, man, like, at a certain point, the NFL becomes a little bit indefensible, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not getting much press because, honestly, I tried to read about this before we talked today, and I couldn't find anything on it.
That's always a terrifying sign because
it is.
And that's the other thing is that because so much media is literally in bed with the NFL, the idea and the knowledge and the spreading of these stories that might cast the NFL in an unfavorable light aren't liable to be boosted. ESPN has a vested interest in not covering this story. Fox, NBC, if you're a broadcast partner of the NFL, or if your local affiliates utilize NFL footage in their newscasts, it is fiscally irresponsible for you to cover this. So I'm going to link the story in the show notes because it's like the Ole Miss story last week. It's one of those stories that it's got great reporting or a great point of view and it needs to be shared, but it's not going to because it deals with people who are too involved with this money.
I don't know. People just don't care. It's so sad. They'd rather be entertained and not have to think about the tough things. And it's disappointing and will never stop being.
Well, let's talk about the money. Kyler Murray is a football player at Oklahoma. Kyler Murray is an undersized quarterback who is projected to be the starter this coming football season. Kyler Murray was just picked number 9 overall by the Oakland Athletics in the 2018 baseball draft. The approximate value of a draft pick at the NFL, or excuse me, MLB for the number 9 pick is $4.8 million. $4.8 million.
He got 5. See, I was able to find information on this shit.
Susan, we don't have children.
Mm-mm.
If we do, and our child is athletic, we get to be offered a place to play football or play baseball. Can we just agree on the record right now that he'll be playing baseball?
Make that money.
Look, it's a lower impact lifestyle. It's lower risk for injury. It's more money. It is. The fact that I have to make this case is ludicrous. I am sure Kyler Murray loves college football. I'm sure the idea of being the big man on campus in Oklahoma is one of those things you dream about your entire life. You don't dream about going to a podunk town to play baseball and have sex with locals. No one dreams that. Some people dream that.
Well, he's still going to be playing football, right?
That's the thing but why play? My thing is, yeah, you're out there to play football. What if you get hurt playing football?
Yep.
Why are we? What? The money's in the bag, correct? Secure the bag.
Yeah.
Don't let the bag be at risk.
Every
snap he takes, practice, games, the bag is at tremendous risk.
It seems like he's found the loophole as to the only way to make money as a college athlete.
This is one of those things that is interesting about the NCAA, and I know people have brought up the young man who was forced to choose between, I think it was long snapping or punting and his YouTube channel, and chose his YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. the way the NCAA rules are written, and they are archaic, is that I can play college football and get paid to play college baseball because nothing about baseball is tied to my football identity or the money that the NCAA can make off of me. The idea behind the YouTube settlement was that because his name was only in prevalence because of his ties to football, he was nominally and monetarily benefiting from his football career. Therefore, it was rendering him ineligible.
Not his own skills.
When I tell you that is horseshit, I agree, but I'm telling you that under the current rules, which are horseshit, this does make sense.
Yeah.
What doesn't make sense is Kyler Murray ever taking another snap under center. I hope the man gets out without injury. I hope he can go play baseball and make all the money in the world. I would cheer for Kyler Murray for the rest of his life if he's playing baseball on the occasions my television gets stuck on baseball. But this is a bad decision. He's being given bad advice. And shame on the adults, particularly the ones involved in the football program who are telling him that this is a good idea. Because it's only a good idea if you stand to benefit from him playing football, i.e. coaches, i.e. athletic directors, i.e. recruiters. It's a no-win for him, except for the adulation of people in Norman, Oklahoma.
I mean, I can't imagine being his age and the ego that you have to build up to be so good at not just one sport, but two, and then also make, decisions setting all those things aside. I can't imagine. I can't imagine. And so you're right. It comes down to the people that he has around him. And once again, it's like if that's not naturally just happening in a positive way, you're screwed.
All right, can we have some fun before we get out of here?
Oh, yes, please.
Brian Colangelo, my new personal hero.
Yes.
For those who don't know, Brian Colangelo was found tied to or linked to 5 Twitter accounts that were constantly either revealing personal information of players or making comments about the players on the Sixers, the team of which Brian Colangelo was the general manager. Now, as I covered last Tuesday, this is kind of a winding, twisting road, as Sam Hinkie was the original GM in Philadelphia who coined the phrase trust the process, which essentially was tanking. Lots of teams have tanked in the past. So people like me who are critics of this process are not necessarily criticizing tanking as a theory or a practice. We're criticizing the way Sam Hinkie did it, kind of devoid of any real humanity. He was bad with the media, which is a big deal in being a GM. So they brought in Jerry Colangelo, the head of NBA basketball for the United States Olympic Committee, and said, hey, come right this ship. He righted the ship by putting his son, Brian Colangelo, in position as GM. Now, all I'm telling you that to tell you this. Brian Colangelo is essentially one of the Trump kids of the NBA. He is the son of the president of NBA basketball, like of USA basketball. That's how you need to know who he is. So when I tell you that when Brian Colangelo is tied to these accounts, it's a much bigger and funnier deal than just saying a random GM because of the level of embarrassment. Now, they brought in an outside law firm to vet this thing out. And it ended as thus. This Wednesday, a statement was released by the Sixers and Brian Colangelo saying that they're going to part ways. Brian Colangelo is going to resign, which essentially means that they could not find enough to fire him, which I think is very interesting because in the process of the investigation, the wife claims that this was all on her. Now, I joked about this last podcast. Sweetheart, I know. I joked about this last show. If I were to get in trouble and Susan were to blame, I want you to know one thing, that there are only 2 options. They both of them mean going to jail or at least being fired. If one of them ends up being fired and my wife not as mad at me, take that option. Like Brian Colangelo's plan the entire time was, if they can't prove it was me, they can't fire me. No, my friend. The idea that someone close to you could have this information is in and of itself fireable. But the fact that he was able, one, to finagle a resignation out of this and not an outright firing, tells
and then
me
still blame his wife?
Oh, we're going to get to the statement in a second, I promise.
Do you think come on.
We're going to get to the statement in a second, I promise. So I can't say the breakdown to everyone. They're going to jump the gun on you.
Sorry. Blame a woman.
That's not what Anyway, Brian Colangelo parted ways. But in the investigation by the law firm, it's important to know that they said that, yes, they agreed that it was all the wife, but also that they could not cooperate it because she had restored her iPhone to factory settings before they could review it.
Shit.
I'm now going to read a portion of the statement from Brian Colangelo. While I'm grateful the independent investigation conducted by the Sixers have confirmed that I had no knowledge or involvement in the Twitter activity conducted by my wife, first sentence, I vigorously dispute the allegation that my conduct was in any way reckless. At no point did I ever purposely or directly share any sensitive, non-public, club-related information with her. Stop. First paragraph. Second paragraph. Her actions were a seriously misguided effort to publicly defend and support me, and while I recognize how inappropriate those actions were, she acted independently and without my knowledge or consent. Further, the content she shared was filled with inaccuracies and conjecture which are in no way represent my views or opinions. While this is obviously a mistake, we are a family and will work through this together. Will they be working it through it together, Susan?
He's a dead man. Right?
It goes back to, like, and my thing is, he had to frame it to her in a way that if we put it on you, maybe I keep my job, which is a level of naivete or maybe privilege that I can't even relate to.
Because he didn't even keep his job.
Exactly. And that's the thing that I think boggles the outsider mind, is that we all recognize that there was no way Brian Colangelo could remain employed. That idea didn't enter his mind until probably the second before he signed that ridiculous statement blaming his wife. He always thought that she'll take this fall, we're going to ride it out. Now, I ask you the more important question. Do you think she did this? Because I don't think she did this.
No. What was in it for her to do this? He seems to be the one who has, gotten places in his life because of his family. There's no proof that he's worthwhile. Seems like he's just a dum-dum.
Well, let's be fair, but this is the Sixers team under Brian Colangelo's helm this year that finished with their most wins in the last 20 years and made it to the second round of the playoffs. Like, I'm not willing to say that he's inherently terrible at his job, even though there are Sixers fans who worship at the altar of Hinkie who would say that, but those people are nerds. I don't like them. I will say this. You're right. There was no benefit for her in doing this on her own. There's no way this information. She didn't make up quotes. She didn't make up DMing reporters and telling them to ask certain things to certain players. She didn't invent that. This was just a horrible miscalculation from a man who's never been told no because of the strength of his name. And I think that if there's anything to come out of this, it should be a keeping it with the Colangelo's television series.
I'm in.
I'm 100% in. It can be added to our lifetime of terrible reality television. Before we get out of here, we're going to talk a little pro wrestling. Before we talk about the pro wrestling on the list, I just want to give a huge shout out to Kenny Omega, IWGP Heavyweight Champion. Hour-long match. I've seen about half of it so far. If you get a chance, illicitly or legally, find a way to watch this match. Dominion, Okada Omega 4, 1 hour, 2 out of 3 falls. Now, the one thing I did want to talk about was CM Punk's lawsuit. So you don't know anything about this, so I'm going to give you the crashiest of crash courses. So when CM Punk parted ways with the WWE after Royal Rumble 2014, he didn't do it in the most amicable way. You can see what's happening during the match. He gets a bit of a concussion. It's later diagnosed as such. He argues with the ringside doctor. He refuses to come out and then is later thrown over the top by Kane. Now, after not coming to Raw the next day, he eventually surfaced on his friend Colt Cabana's podcast, The Art of Wrestling. Here, over a 2-part podcast, they outlined all of CM Punk's grievances with the WWE, including what he believed was mistreatment medically for a staph infection a year prior. During this, he did not, I think he named the doctor one time, but you could see him arguing with the one doctor in a Royal Rumble video. Fans latched on to that. Wrestling fans are locusts, so they assaulted and attacked this man via Twitter. Dr. Aman eventually decided to file a lawsuit for defamation against CM Punk and Colt Cabana and said that he wanted it was $2 for every stream. The streaming apparently was about 1.9 million, which means about 200,000 people listened. And he asked for over $3.8 million in damages during trial. It was a 4-day trial that finally came and ended this week. Punk and Cabana were cleared of all, and because it's in Cook County in Chicago, no one's paying anything as far as legal fees. This is ridiculous. This is hilarious. It happened during the week of CM Punk's second UFC fight. Spoilers, he lost. Oh. And this is going to be brought up again because it comes down to, like, you watched me get back into pro wrestling, and I'm so very, very sorry. But it's something that you brought up to, like, when these guys get hurt or what happens, like, because you get paid for your dates. Like, you're incentivized not to play. You're incentivized to not tell people you're hurt. You're incentivized to be in the ring. What I'm going to be doing is on PW Torch's Deep Dive podcast in 2 weeks. I'm going to be on with Rich Fan, and we're going to be discussing the idea behind unions in pro wrestling, because these $2.1 and $2.5 billion TV deals that were just secured by the WWE, isn't this the time that the wrestlers say, maybe, just maybe, we should have a seat at this table to be bargained as a union, and not to collectively bargain as a union, and not have to come out with each individual deal and maybe end up in court for defamation about our treatment medically? Is this something that, and this is, I'm just asking this cold, a wrestlers union, that kind of makes sense, right? Because they're all independent contractors who are kind of, when things get really bad, could be left to their own devices.
Yes, I mean, these men are putting their bodies on the line. It's regardless of how you feel about wrestling or how you define it. I mean, it is athleticism, and it's incredibly dangerous. So, of course.
Stunt performers have a union. I know that for a fact. So maybe these guys who are live action stunt performers should have a union. But again, we're going to be talking about that in depth next Saturday, or 2 Saturdays from now, June 23rd, 6 p.m. PW Torch live deep dive with Rich Fan. Susan, thank you so much for coming on. Guys, everyone who has ever appreciated any podcast content, this is the woman to thank. She keeps the rest of the world moving while I sit in the room and talk to my internet friends. So I really appreciate it. Do you have anything you want to plug, like maybe your Twitter account?
No. I'm on Twitter just to make sure you're alive if I can't get a hold of you via text.
And I do appreciate that very much. My name is SPalm. You can follow me on Twitter at DPalm66. You can follow the show on Twitter at UDPod. You can follow the entire MTR Network at the MTR Network. You find us on Lose to Subscribe in the iTunes Store. Leave that 5-star review. I'll read it on the air. That was your show. This is your outro. See you guys next week.